Let me tell you very quickly what was prepared by François Trucy, and he was a reporter on this law to the Senate. Ladies and gentlemen, I unfortunately cannot be here for this meeting that you have set up here in Paris. I'm very sorry that I'm being deprived of meeting some people with whom I've been working for ever so long. They're all very important for me because they were very important in this industrial sector, which is extremely important and difficult. So let me tell you what I feel about the opening of the market of online gambling according to the law of 2010. Now, the law of 2010 was well set out, but it doesn't mean that it was perfect. It had several plus points to it because finally it was organizing the opening of the French market to poker, turf betting and gambling, creating very strict conditions and rigorous conditions, particularly on the part of a state which hates any kind of gray areas. So fix a certain taxation for the state in order to preserve a source of revenue and also keep a part aside from all the gambling revenues for health. However, there were certain drawbacks because this taxation of all the gross revenue proved to be disastrous, and it was very rudimentary, and it didn't really fit in with the needs and requirements, and there was absolutely no observatory for these games that was required for a long time by everybody who was in the field. So the contribution meant to fight gaming and addiction and others was much too weak and had the major drawback, instead of going to specialized units, falling upon Social Security and whose huge deficit is unfortunately unable to block this desire. So the state is not open to any opening and discussion, and as a result, there were no specialists in this field. Now, while the Commission of Finances for the Senate had a good knowledge in this field, it was not the same thing for the National Assembly. So Jean-François Lamour, the former deputy and parliamentarian, and I'm thinking particularly of Gaëtan Gors, very quickly pointed out this huge deficit, and despite which the National Assembly adopted quite a few laws which are really quite useful. And this draft law came to the Senate when I was the reporter, and I did my very best to come up with the best results, not just for this new work that represented online gaming and gambling. Now, there was a lot of internal work going on within the Senate, and I was helped by 3 other people. I have a good memory of all that was done, and particularly with the subordinates of Eric Worth, who were extremely available to me, and I thank them very much for it. Having said that, now, if I were to reassure all the opposition of the left, and on several points which gave rise to major concerns, I just could not convince Minister Worth of this absolute necessity of providing us with a consulting committee on games. Now, helped by my President, João Artiste, when facing the Financial Commission, I came up with 3 points. The first was to set up this consultative committee. The others, I felt, were just like bombs, and their amendments would have had an incontestably terrible effect. The trap was well set. The amendments motivated with all the unwillingness that happens often, and Minister Worth could only accept the proposal of the rapporteur. Everything was just right, just perfect, and the Assembly decided to agree, and the law was promulgated in record time. So you know what happened after that. And honestly, it is a great pleasure to tell you about this unpleasantness. And listen to this. Now, taxing on games, be it online or else, should be on the gross revenues, because they will all move to the illegal gambling sector. They'll all go to the back room. So you must give them the right place so that they can play their role of consultants in a state which is totally indifferent to gaming as long as it doesn't affect its own revenues. Now, in 2014, when the commissioners were supposed to study this rather difficult condition of the French casino, the person in charge of the Treasury's cabinet refused to reveal their findings because they felt it would be a criticism of the ministry. Now, thank you very much for being so loyal, but I feel that all successive governments will at least have one point in common, and that would be to reduce to silence this system and get rid of it completely. And then one must also help ARJEL in what it is doing, because they have proven to be a very good regulatory authority for all gaming and all gambling. Regarding addiction in gaming, in a public science, we refused that any taxation for this should be really kept for it, because we felt these resources otherwise would not get to the right people they're meant for. So there's some very few private associations like SOS Players who should also be helped. There's just Française des Jeux and casinos that are actually funding these initiatives, though they are being attacked because it turns out to be a conflict of interest. Like others, I have often contributed to making progress. This gaming industry is just as difficult as any other and requires a lot more attention from the state. The different categories of operators have never been treated properly by the state. The PMU and Française des Jeux, of ancients in this field, have always received affectionate and indulgent attention from the state. Now, since they have a very good network, they have adapted to the new markets and they have innovated. And what's more, Française des Jeux, with the help of the state, have gone online now. Thank you very much for this efficacy, and I congratulate you for the same. Now, casinos were always badly treated, perhaps because they are private, and they're completely regulated, very severe regulation, and they tend to pay more tax than any of the other operators. And that has led to a major deterioration in their state. Now, the state, of course, would like to establish a proper responsible gaming system. It would still have to provide its help to all those who are addicts now. This is open, and I thank you all very much. Thank you very much for listening to me. This is François Trucy.